3:45, rolling through a busy Thursday afternoon. Jason Greger, Jason Strudwick with you. Thanks for joining us as always. We appreciate it. Lots of text line in at 10-12-60. Of course, big news. Bit and Playfair out. Woodcroft and Manson are in. Also, Niemelainen and Broberg are going to be recalled by the Oilers. The Oilers also signed Brad Malone to a contract. He has to be put on. He's got to clear waivers. So you might be seeing Malone come up. Now, he would clear waivers by noon tomorrow, but they could bring him up then, I guess, in theory. Or do you wait and see just on the off chance the team claims him? I'd be surprised, but you never know, right? Because any team could have signed him. That's why I'd be surprised, right? He was on an HL deal. If another team really wanted him, they could have just signed him themselves, signed him to a minor league deal. Although maybe they were worried that if they would have done that, then the Oilers would have claimed him. Who knows? But there you go. Let's get to the racing report brought to you by CanTorque. They have so many new products and features. There's just too many to list in this short live liner. So go to CanTorque.com's news section to see what they've been up to, and lots been up to in F1. He ended his silence with just one post, but of course, Mr. Hamilton is coming back to F1, which I don't think is a major surprise at all. The interesting thing, Colin, is there came out the reports about Massey's decision and Red Bull and Wheatley having a conversation. But I want to go back to the timeline here for Massey and how much experience he had at the time, like this year, and was he unfortunately kind of rushed through to this job due to an unfortunate death?
Yeah, I mean, I think people forget that, Massey was the right-hand man of the old race director, Charlie Whiting. Charlie was universally loved, absolutely respected by, all teams, all drivers, everyone around the sport. Not to say that Massey wasn't, but, his promotion came, maybe before he was ready, or maybe, before all that information and all that experience got passed on to him. He was the heir apparent. But since Massey took over, again, the recurring theme is that he didn't have the support network. He didn't have the people to do the job that Massey was doing for Charlie Whiting, really in his position. Flash forward a couple of years, he's been in the job, but his whole tenure was also in the time of COVID, which, on the surface, maybe doesn't mean an awful lot, but these COVID races, they never really knew where they were going to race, when they were going to race, what the conditions were in the beginning. Were there going to be fans, no fans? It was, and probably still is quite chaotic. Once that whole timeline came down and it came to crunch time, I mean, I think, we're fortunate here that we're able to say kind of whatever we want. We don't have any ramifications. We're not, emboldened to anyone for anything. And we can kind of, use this as more of an opinion, than sports reporting. But I think the universal message that everyone's got is that, things weren't handled the right way. And the application of the rules just wasn't consistent with what the procedures have been.
So, Colin, do you think there needs to be like another layer? Like you need two guys in that position, or two people, whatever it is, just to kind of have someone to talk it over, or how do you move forward so this doesn't happen again? And this, I understand an intense situation, but you don't want this to reoccur. Yeah,
this is a systematic kind of issue. You always want one person as the ultimate decision maker, because you think about race speeds and you think about how fast everything happens. You can't have a lot of decision by committee. You still need to have one person, but that one person needs to be able to take all the information that's being accumulated by stewards, by teams, because as we've come to know in the last couple of years, and specifically the 21 season, where we started to get more privy to the team's direct communication back to the race director, how much they only show us what they want us to hear. They won't play the controversial thing. They won't play the offensive thing. They'll only give us little bits. And the broadcasters are and the rights holder of Formula One are really careful and really clever that they release these things in a specific order to kind of create a narrative. And there's been a lot of controversy with the Drive to Survive program, which has obviously been a net great addition to the world of racing. Everyone who comes in says, I started watching this thing and now I'm an F1 fan and I'm starting to watch all kinds of racing, which is awesome. But they also get kind of a false sense of what's really going on with how they kind of cut things together in real time. As these decisions are being made, there needs to be more of a structure. I think Michael Massey needs more support. At the end of the day, the scariest thing is that he might be relieved of his duties, and the FIA keeps hinting that once they finish their investigation and once they kind of connect all these dots, that he might be gone. And like in so many cases, we've got Oilers fans screaming, and they finally got their wish today that there's going to be coaching changes within the organization, but who do you replace them with? Like it's fine to say someone's not doing their job, but you never really know what the solution is. I just hope at the end of the day, I don't think justice will ever be done, but they absolutely have to come up with more consistency, because unless you're Max Verstappen, Christian Horner, or really heavily entrenched with Red Bull, there's not a lot of happy people out there.
Carl Livingston for the CanTorque Race Report here on the Jason Gregor Show on TSN 1260. Let's shift gears over to NASCAR with the Busch Lite clash at the Coliseum that went on the weekend. There's varying accounts about the success or lack of thereof of this whole showcase. What did you think of this event that took place in one of the biggest markets in not just the world, but in North America?
Yeah, I mean, I think NASCAR did a lot of right things trying to get exposure for their sponsors and their sport into obviously one of the largest markets in the US, whether it's New York or LA. I guess it depends on what criteria you look at, but the drivers seem to really like it. It was an exhibition event, so there were no points on the schedule. So you were really just competing for a win. It was either win or nothing kind of thing, and that's fine. What really bothers me is that the event that they put on had absolutely nothing to do with what fans are going to see the rest of the year. So if this is designed to get more people watching the sport, they watch this quarter-mile short track temporary structure that doesn't exist in 2 weeks. And then they have to watch an entire season of things that have nothing to do with that. The next shortest track that they run on is just over half a mile long. And the largest track, aside from a road course, is 2.66 miles. There's nothing that happened from that weekend that translates to anything that NASCAR really does. So I'm not, I'm not really sure what the whole big picture was. They can't turn that into a regular event. They can't, run there unless they're going to keep rebuilding this track every year. So, I just don't really see what the big picture is, but there's also a reason why I'm not the president of NASCAR.
Colin Livingston joins us in the CanTorque Racing Report. Colin, I want to talk about the W Series. Of course, Caitlyn Jenner announces she'll enter a team as a team principal. She had 57 starts in the IMSA Series as a driver. Canadian Nicole Haverda is also doing some testing. Where's her career going?
Man, she's done really, really well. Nicole, that is. We'll get back to Caitlyn in a little bit, but met Nicole a couple of years ago when I was doing those Challenge of the Americas races down in the States. We just happened to be pitted together. And she was pretty much brand new to karting. Her dad had a real love and wanted to see her develop. As of this year, she'll be running a full season of F4 from what her website's indicating anyway. So, F4 is like real racing. She'll be running mostly down in the States. I'm not sure if she's going to continue with any of her karting stuff back in BC, but it was really great to see her included in that W Series test. What they did is take 15 drivers from all over the place. They had them do a multi-day test down in Arizona. And really what they're analyzing is, to figure out how they handle the car, but more about how they can learn, how they can speak, how they can adapt, how they engage with their crews. So, hopefully we'll be seeing Nicole, not just, maybe in the W Series, but, in other forms of open wheel racing as she develops. That was, that was really fun to watch. And then, with Caitlyn Jenner getting into the ownership role, like what they're saying is that she's not going to be just an absentee owner, like going to be very active in the day-to-day operation of sponsor acquisition and driver development. And I mean, like you mentioned, 57 starts in the IMSA series. That's not insignificant. That's a number of years as a race car driver. So there's going to be a lot of firsthand experience that gets transferred on there.
So for the young driver, Nicole, what area do young drivers have to move or improve in most to kind of move up the ranks and hone their skills?
Money.
Oh,
yeah. It's, I mean, I don't mean to be so flippant, but there's just an uncountable number of amazing drivers that we'll never get to know because they just don't have the funding to keep going up the ladder. I mean, until you really, really, really get into, if you're lucky enough to get to a Penske in IndyCar, you don't just get there. You've paid your way along the way. You've run for, quote unquote, lesser teams in IndyCar, and then Mr. Penske, brings you over when he's got an opening. The drivers in Formula One that are getting big paychecks, and it's not that many of them, they've paid a lot of money to get where they are. That's the single biggest thing. I mean, as a driver, you always learn more skills. The cars get a little bit more complicated. There's more adjustability, and you have to learn more of the physics behind the cars, the faster they go and the bigger they get. But, generally, the biggest stumbling block is always cash.
Colin, one last one. What were your thoughts? The Busch Lite clash at the Coliseum ran in LA last weekend. What did you make of it?
Again, I was happy to watch it. I was kind of sick in bed, so I didn't really have a lot else to do. It was great to see race cars running around the track, but again, I don't think there's a lot of crossover between what the Clash is doing and what conventional racing is going to be. The track was so short and so tight, and those cars were so powerful and so big that the only way to really make passes was to knock into each other. Not exactly the greatest showcase of driver talent, but it sounded like the TV ratings were really popular. Whether they carry on throughout the year was, yet to be seen, because the rest of the season is nothing like what that event's going to be like. But I like Drive to Survive. Anything that gets eyes on the screens is what we need.
Colin, great stuff, man. Have yourself a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good, guys.